Welcome back to EWTN News In Depth as we continue our special report on the first 100 days of Pope Leo XIV's papacy. As we've heard, much has been said about the deliberate, careful, and meticulous way the Holy Father is approaching the vast responsibilities he faces as he leads the more than 1 billion Catholics around the globe. Could these traits be linked to the very subjects he studied in school? After graduating from St. Augustine Seminary High School, Prevost continued his Augustinian education at Villanova University, where he majored in mathematics. The year he was ordained a priest, he earned a Master of Divinity degree from the Catholic Theological Union and then turned to the precision of canon law, earning a graduate degree and then a doctorate in canon law from the Pontifical College of St. Thomas Aquinas in Rome, known as the Angelicum. He is the first pope to sit on the throne of St. Peter as a math major, which admiring mathematicians say makes perfect sense. Our own reporting in the National Catholic Register reveals math aficionados see a close connection between math training and systematic theology, both of which seek to bring order and coherence. With his interest in science, technology, and math, Pope Leo has earned the title of being a STEM Pope. Joining us now to discuss Pope Leo's bent towards STEM is Dr. Daniel Kuebler. He is a biology professor at Franciscan University of Steubenville, the vice president of the Society of Catholic Scientists, and the author of a new book called Darwin and Doctrine, which explores the compatibility of evolution and Catholicism. And in full disclosure, Dan and I hosted the Purposeful Lab podcast for 5 seasons together, where we explored the purpose in the universe and in life. Dan continues to host the podcast today. Dan, it is great to see you, especially for this special show. Pope Leo is our first mathematician pope, but this is interesting. The Center for Applied Research and the Apostolate, or CARA, found that about 10% of U.S. candidates for the priesthood who were ordained this spring majored in either math or science. So who knows, there could be future math popes as well. But Dan, in your opinion, how could a math or science background help to equip the priestly ministry?
Yeah, I think it's great. Math is such, a window to both the eternal and to creation. So Galileo said, the universe is written in the language of mathematics, and really understanding math helps you understand God's creation, particularly in physics and chemistry, now even more in biology. But also, math is sort of this immaterial thing, like numbers are these immaterial realities. So it points towards, this that there is an immaterial reality there, and I think that's why math sort of blends well into philosophy and then into the bigger questions of life. So what are numbers? They are immaterial things that have reality in this world. So I think, as a pope, I think it's a great mix of, having this science background, math background, but at the same time with the theological training, and the math is sort of a bridge between the two, I think.
It's a fascinating combination. And Dan, on the 56th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing, Pope Leo visited the Vatican Observatory and spoke with astronaut Buzz Aldrin. It's only been 100 days of Pope Leo, but what do you make of what seems to be a great interest in space and the galaxy so far?
Yeah, I think again, he has this love of creation, and sees how creation and scientific discovery can bring us closer to God. He spoke to the Vatican Observatory Summer School and talked to their students about the beauty of God's creation. And I think it's putting a lie to this myth that the more you immerse yourself in science and scientific discovery, the less you're going to become a believer. But the more we understand creation, in fact, the order underneath creation, I think, is leading people to God, which is sort of counterintuitive what this myth that people sort of grew up with. And I think it points towards this order in creation and so forth, and particularly staring out at the galaxy, the wonder and awe of it brings you to the wonder and awe of God.
That's beautiful. We'll be delving more into Pope Leo and AI more later in the program, but I do want to get your thoughts on the significance of Pope Leo addressing AI head on. From your perspective, what was your reaction when you heard he plans to make addressing AI ramifications a major part of his pontificate?
Yeah, I think that's great because it's one of those big challenges, sociologically, what do we do with this new technology? But it also has sort of philosophical consequences. Is what is a human person, and what is it about human people that make us different than technology. And he's really concerned. I think I heard a speech talking about how young people are being affected by AI, and really manipulating data is one thing, but humans have this ability that goes beyond that. So AI just manipulates data, but humans have the ability to recognize the true meaning of life and the purpose and ultimate purpose. And so not relying on AI to tell us that, but that's something we have to discover on our own. AI can tell us a lot of things, can help us a lot, but these ultimate meaningful questions, we don't want to lose those, and realize these are things that humans still have to grapple with, particularly young people, because they're growing up with this, in their face all the time.
Absolutely. Pope Leo sent a message to an international bioethics summit held earlier this summer in Rome, and he called on participants to favor approaches to science that are always authentically more humane and respectful of the integrity of the human person. And he also called on them to persevere in scientific knowledge at the service of truth and of the common good. Dan, as a Catholic biologist, your thoughts on the importance of those comments for the scientific landscape today?
Yeah, I think it's similar with AI. It's like science has to be serve at service to humanity. It has to be rightly ordered. It can't be put at the top of the totem pole where you have scientism, where science is the master. If we can do it scientifically, we should just go ahead and do it. But he echoes what Pope John Paul II, Pope Benedict have said about science. Has to be at the service of humanity, never becoming its master, and recognize that science is for the good of the human person, and if it helps the human person flourish, it's great. If you use science as a tool to denigrate the human person, and then that's something that we need to be aware of. And so putting science in context, that there's the theological, philosophical, moral, ethical questions of how we use science to build up humanity rather than to denigrate it. And again, he's very consistent with what the church has said over the past few decades about science and scientific discovery.
Absolutely. Dan, you are the leading expert on faith and science. In fact, your new book hits on the compatibility of evolution in the Catholic Church. So Dan, do you foresee Pope Leo leaning into how faith and science do go hand in hand? And how do you think that might draw even more people into the church?
Yeah, I think he will. He has that background that he's able to do that. Having an understanding of mathematics and science and appreciation of that. And I really think that is something that this compatibility of faith and science is something that's coming to the forefront. I know the Society of Catholic Scientists that I'm a member of, we do a lot of work in that area. And I think people are open to that message. I think they're starting to realize this idea that science and faith are at odds. It doesn't fully make sense when we see the beauty and the order of creation. And so I think the more we can lean into that, the more I think you can draw young people, particularly young people that like science, into the faith, where they see, hey, no, this actually builds up my faith rather than destroys it. And I think coming from the Pope, I think that's a wonderful message.
Absolutely. Dr. Dan Kuebler, it's great to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Catherine.